When we talk about research, I'll be sharing my screen very soon with you. I'm just giving you a brief of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So when you start, you say that, okay, I'll research. The most common problem that the students face and they bring to me most of the times is, what should I research on? I mean, what area should I take? Where should I begin? I don't know anything. So what you should do, from where do you begin? It all stems down to what you're really interested in, what you're really interested in as far as the research is concerned, the domain is concerned. All right. And I would like to make this more interactive, but mostly what I'll do is I'll be talking for an hour, and then you can keep down all your questions. If you think that you'll forget, maybe you can put it on the Q&A section, so that we can take it at the end and we can have a discussion on that, because this is about taking up the problems from the very beginning at the root level. So the first thing that comes to our mind is, even I'm not talking just about the students. So I had always this habit of giving research projects for assignments. That is compulsory in University of Delhi, that you have to go for an internal assignment. So I used to ask my students to work around some of the research topics and understand it from the undergraduate course. So if NEP is going to bring this as something which is very compulsory for all of you, then that in a way it will lay down some of the aspects. But what we are looking at is good researches, seminal researches which have the capability of breaking through, disrupting things. So when we say research, you're researching again. Most of the time you will see the problems that are associated with research is the students or even the research scholars having been the editor of RIJBR. We almost every day we get research articles from young research scholars and students, and the common problem that we found in those researches was that the students start writing. They talk about, okay, I'm going to do research, and they just start with it, not knowing what are the basics. Okay, why of it? The question is why do you want to do a particular thing? So we don't see any theory, we don't see any conceptual thought process or theoretical building of the research. We do not see any research question. Okay, what we look at is mostly descriptive researches. Okay, students do this. I'll tell you, I'll just bring out the specific facet. Okay, no research has been done in this area, and therefore I'm doing a research on this area, and this is how they start their work with. Nobody has done this research on this particular topic, and if I go and search it on the same topics, I'll get hundreds, lakhs, even I'll not say hundreds, lakhs of researches in that particular area, and they have this habit of writing down that, okay, this research area has not been explored and I'm the first one to do it, and then the problem begins. The second problem which we look at is that mostly, which I see from the papers that I get for reviewing and that are desk rejected, are this study has been carried out in the Western world. Now we are using the same kind of study design in the Indian context, or it has been done in the Indian context in this particular sector. Now I want to do it in a different sector without really changing anything much. So it looks like more of a description of things, more like an indexing rather than a research. All right, since we are beginning something noble here, research is something I consider to be very pious, very sacred. You just don't do it for the heck of it. You start doing it and you get into it, you get into the groove, and then start working on building further. You have to be you have to be really very passionate about the things that you're doing. Okay, so this is what I just laid down before you, and I'll quickly show to you some of the important things. First half an hour, what I'll do is I'll be talking about literature review and a systematic literature review, and the second thing, the second part, the second half an hour, which I'll be talking about is how do you actually formulate research questions. What is the basis? From where do you start? This is important because you will see multiple research papers are rejected because they don't have plausible research questions. Okay, without research questions, we are not looking for any meaningful research. We are not looking for any seminal research. The contribution is zero then, and therefore the article will be just rejected. Okay, this is the process which I'm trying to explain over here, and I have learned it the hard way because nobody tells you about it, right? And now what I'm going to tell you about is my own experience on how you have to build around the research work. I'm not saying that I'm very, very successful in doing that. I'm still learning, and everybody learns. We are all in the phase of learning, lifelong learning, that is what we call it. And I'm sure I have a lot of things to learn from you guys also. All right, so it is always like that there are a lot of things that need to be explored. So this is what I'm going to talk about for 1 hour, and then I'll take your questions on the various aspects. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if it's visible. Okay.
It's
Visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, perfect. So this is what we are going to talk about: systematic literature review and the research problems. I can see some questions there, also raising hands, but what you can do is just write it on the chat box or write it in the Q&A, and I'll take it at the end of the session. Okay, so the question as in why research, I would have taken much time. When it would have been a physical setting, I would have called each one upon you and asked, why do you want to do a research? Because you're all here, you are all passionate about research. So why research? As a student, I'm sure you are very much passionate about it. If you want, you can build up a career on this. If you are a research scholar, you're already into a research, already into the research domain. Now think about doing some seminal work, some great work. If you're a teacher, no reprise. You will have to work on it right now, because the world is such as in education and academics now. If we don't fall back upon research, we are not considered to be very good teachers as well. So and for all the things that we all know, promotions and recruitment and everything. So research, why research? I think this can be one most motivation for doing this research for students. If I have to particularly talk about the students, that why you are researching. And I have also been said that most of you are from the psychology discipline, others are from disciplines like botany and others. So mostly what I want you people to understand is, when you are saying research, you are asking about new questions. You're asking about deliverables. You're asking about originality in the work, because it has been seen over the years, and the last 2 years with the COVID pandemic, people got a lot of time to work on their research. So we have seen exponential rise in the number of research articles that have been submitted to journals and accepted as well. Earlier it was not so much of research. So publishing, I would call this, publishing research today is difficult, more difficult than it was before, because many people have come into this area. You will find a lot of desk rejections if you are not perfect. Okay, so if publishing is your aim, if you want to publish in good journals, you should take care of the things that I'm going to talk about. Okay, initial things that you have to really take care of. Otherwise, be ready for more and more of desk rejections. All right. So we'll talk about literature review. We'll talk about research question formulation. We talk about gap spotting and problematization. This is the agenda for today. Let us see how can we cover most of the things here. Okay, so what is actually literature review? I'll quickly tell you. It is to identify, it is to synthesize relevant literature. And what is this literature? Literature is the amount of document that you can find in in published mode. Okay, unpublished also I will call it, because now you have the comfort of putting your working papers in different domains. Like even in SSRN, you can put in your working papers and let the world know that yes, you're working on a research topic, and this is the area of research that you want to do. So published as well as unpublished things are there. Even if it's unpublished but it has a digital object identifier, DOI, it can be cited as well. Now, when I say citation, I mean to say that how your fellow researchers are making a mention about your research in their own work. All right. So if they have seen this, that your article is good enough, they can, cite it for future references. All right. So when we say identify and synthesize relevant literature, we mean here that there are a lot of published and unpublished resources. It is our responsibility to, take the most relevant ones from the pool of, a lot of researchers. I always call literature review a humbling experience. Okay, why it is a humbling experience? Because you can think about a lot of things that what you want to do a research on, but when you type those keywords, okay, we'll also talk about keywords in a quick while from now. So if you type in some keywords, what are these keywords? Keywords are those words that distinguish your articles from other articles, as in what specific have you done in your work which is, say, unique. And people use those words to search. What are the common words that will be used for searching your research article in search engines like Google Scholar? All right. So now the question is that out of all these researches, which one would you take, and how do you move forward with your own research thing? Okay. So it's evaluating a specific research question. I'll talk about research question in a quick while from now. Substantive domain. Domain here means a discipline that we are talking about, maybe psychology, maybe in psychology, you're talking about positive psychology. So you can take it up from there. Theoretical approach. Here we are talking about theory building. Theory building is that something we'll talk about theory also in detail, but theory here, if I have to talk about, is something which converts, abstraction. That means things which are abstract right now. If I just give you a name, say for example, if I say cognition, you will think about, what cognition is. And then if you start defining it in terms of, say, mental models, so if you start defining it in terms of intellectual contribution, you will say, okay, this is what cognition is. So it's abstract, and you work on it and you give it a theory. It becomes rigorous. One researcher does some research on it, other researchers come again and do some substantive research which fills in some of the gaps. That leads to, say, a theory building. In very short, if I have to explain it to you, so it's a kind of creating linkages between different constructs, and in terms of, providing some assumptions and some keeping some things constant, and then say, okay, these are the relationships, this is how it happens in organization, this is how it happens in real life, and so on and so forth. So it becomes theory. You also do this research in terms of methodology. There can be different methodologies that we work around. If I have to stick to psychology, or say organizational behavior, or HRM, or commerce, or management discipline, I would call, methodology here as qualitative, quantitative. When you do qualitative research, you are looking for, say, ethnography, uh, phenomenography, and phenomenology, and so on and so forth. But I'll not get into the details of it, otherwise I have to explain each of them. The use of NVivo and other softwares is mostly for the qualitative. And methodology here also can be quantitative, in the sense that you can go for experimental study, you can go for observations. Observation can be again qualitative and quantitative. What we say is mixed methodology that we use, and so on. So basically what you're doing in literature review, you are reviewing everything. Okay, you're talking about research questions, you're talking about domain, you're talking about theory, you're talking about methodology, and so on and so forth. And what you're doing all this for? In order to know that what is the state of the art of this present research topic, what the world knows about it, what researchers have contributed to it right now. What is the common dialogue behind that state of the art? Okay, so knowing what is going around is very important before, you actually formulate what research you want to do. Say for example, let us make it easy. If you come and you say that, okay, I want to do a research on, say, learning. Okay, learning as a discipline. All right. So what I'll suggest you to do is, I'll ask you to go and check all the theories that have been, established in learning. So I'll call you, and you will then come back to me and say, okay, I have learned classical conditioning, I have learned operant conditioning, I have learned, you know, observational method, and then you'll say, I have also learned social learning theory, and so on and so forth. You'll come to me and you'll say that, okay, this is the state of the art. And then I'll ask you, then why do you want to do research on learning if you think that it is already a developed subject, already a developed discipline? Why do you want to do more of it? So now the question which comes in our mind is, uh, specify, at this time you have to specify what is wrong with the earlier theories. Okay, this is what is the concept of problematization that we'll talk later. What is wrong with the theories? This is number one. Or what the earlier theories have said is perfectly all right, their assumptions are also perfectly all right, but I can sense that there are certain gaps. Okay, theoretically there are certain gaps. Now those gaps and the magnitude of those gaps, okay, which you have learned it in learning theories, if you are able to identify a larger gap, maybe then you are talking about a better study. Better in the sense that more original study. Originality here means you're able to give something original, or you are able to add something to the literature. So whenever we talk about learning, we talk about Ivan Pavlov, classical conditioning, or B.F. Skinner we talk about when we talk about operant conditioning. Okay, so now the research which comes in here, if you have done something seminal, maybe after Bandura, social learning theory, observation theory, maybe some name you can also think about, okay, your own contribution if it is seminal. So there are two things. So one is here gap filling, as in what are the gaps, identify those gaps. You consider that the assumptions that previous studies have taken are all right, perfectly fine, but there are certain gaps that they have not understood, so we'll fill that gap and do a research study on that topic. Or you do second thing, that is called, questioning the very assumptions of those studies, questioning that whatever they have said or done is uh, not correct. You can say that it may not be correct. Okay, this is your postulation, you're proving it, आप बता रहे हो ये चीज कि ऐसा नहीं हुआ है, या एक चीज है कि नहीं हुआ है, तो वो गैप है। और दूसरी चीज ये है कि जो हुआ है, जो स्टडीज हुए हैं और जो assumptions उन्होंने लिए हैं वो ही गलत थे, या उसमें anomaly है। Okay, there is problem associated with it, and therefore you'll say, okay, I want to do a better work. So problematization is this. Okay, so this is about, how you go about talking about literature, understanding literature, and then from that asking some questions. All right, so this is about literature review. Now why we go for a review paper? What is the common essence of it? Okay, why a review paper? So first thing is resolving some kind of ambiguities and outline the scope of the topic. I'll talk about in this sense that, whenever you go for a literature review, your aim should be to know what is the current state of the art knowledge in this discipline. Okay, and in the process understand that there can be ambiguities, because there have been a lot of researches done on that topic, a lot of people have contributed to it, so there can be deficiencies, there can be ambiguities. All the researchers may not be on the same page. Okay, they may be having different views, differing views also. With each passing day, you will see a lot of articles being written on that paper, some refuting, some accepting the earlier hypothesis. Okay, so what as a researcher you have to do in the very beginning, when you have formulated, okay, this is my research topic and I want to go ahead with it, you would like to see that how different research authors have defined a particular concept, and try to analyze if there are ambiguities regarding it, if they are not sure, or you can say there is no common unification, or there is no uniformity in the way things have been defined. All right, so if you know this, we can start with the purpose of review paper. Okay, so the next part is providing an integrated, synthesized overview of the current state. This we have already talked about. You can also try and identify some inconsistencies. Inconsistencies means the results, maybe some of the things have not been taken up. So you will see when new research come up, I don't know if you're knowing these terms like moderators, mediators, measures, and approaches. And if I try explaining you all of that, it will take me a lot of time. So I'll just consider it here that, if you don't, please go and read about moderators, mediators, measures, and approaches. And if I have to say it this way, you first talk and learn about, say, variables, what are dependent variable, what are independent variables. Then you can learn a little bit about the constructs and the concept of latent constructs. If you don't know, then you should go ahead and read them. Okay, some of the contract constructs, if I have to talk about, I'll say learning is one construct. Okay, or motivation is one construct, or for example, stress is one construct. Okay, now these constructs can be made up of different variables, uh, can be used up by researchers to explain or define a construct. So read them, and when you have different constructs and you see the relationship, say for relationship between different constructs. So for, if I say, if I'm motivated, I will have, I'll perform well and I'll not be stressed in the workplace. Okay, so what is happening here, that I'm trying to draw a interlinkage between different constructs here. So what are the constructs that I'm talking about? I'm saying, okay, I am motivated and therefore I'm not stressed. So there are two things here. First is motivation, second is stress, and I'm measuring both. Okay, so these are the constructs. Maybe there is a mediator, in between. I'm just trying to explain you. You can think about it in a different session, maybe, if you're told about mediators. Here what happens if there is stress and there is motivation, if you are highly motivated, it may lead to lesser stress. This can be our hypothesis, this can be our research question. All right, this is something which I'm just trying to formulate for you. And say, for example, if you have good managerial support in an organizational setting, you think that you're having a good managerial support. That means your manager is good, supports you in different uh, things that you're doing, your different ambitions that you're taking up, or different work that you're taking up, or they provide you with requisite infrastructure and resources, and everything is there. So we say that, okay, if motivation, the relationship between motivation and stress is, say, mediated by the managerial support. Okay, so the relationship between motivation and stress will change with the introduction of this mediator. Okay, so read more about it, you will understand. So what I'm trying to talk about here is that there can be inconsistencies in prior results. Maybe concepts of mediators have not been explained much, or earlier studies may not have talked about the role of, say, supervisors or managerial support. So you can bring it, you can think about. So this is a research gap. Okay, earlier studies have not talked about one specific construct that can play a major role in defining the relationship between mediator and stress. So now you know it, that the literature has not talked about it, therefore you can start working on it and maybe develop a research question from it. Okay, so this can be one purpose. Okay, the fourth thing is you try and evaluate the methodological approaches and provide unique insights. So say for example, it is always said, that experiments are the gold standards. All right, and we have seen increasing use of survey methodology these days in past 20 years, if I can take it forward. Okay, and if you are very well versed with all the experiments that have been done in psychology and different disciplines of psychology, you will understand that we used to focus more on experiments before. Okay, 1990s and before that, you'll see more and more of experiments where they, and later on, this survey methodology came into picture, in which you could ask a question and multiple people would answer this question. All right, and because it had this power of multiple people, so many people, generalizations could be easily made. Okay, so this was the fervor till recently, but now you will see that most of the journals, good journals, are seeking, they are going back to experiments, because because of the very deficiency of the survey methodology, in which if I have to ask you a question, the way you are going to answer it or you are going to report it, it depends on you. Okay, you will answer a particular question, maybe say you're biased about it, or uh, or you're conforming to the social norms. Okay, something that you think should be answered ऐसे ही इसको आंसर करना है तो आप वैसे ही आंसर कर देते हैं. आप ये नहीं सोचते, when a questionnaire is given to you, when you're filling out a questionnaire, you you have to answer it. The question is written, there is no wrong, there in the instructions, if you see, there is no wrong or right answer. You have to just answer it what you think about it or what you perceive about it. But generally, we do not have any control on our respondents as in how they will respond to it. Okay, so now the question is, there are different types of theories that have been built on, say, survey methodology. Okay, can that be questioned? Can we question that? Can we put a question mark on the methodology and the things that have been adopted and portrayed in a kind of a rhetoric? आप कुछ चीजों को बता देते हो और कहते हो और जनरलाइज कर देते हो कि ये सबके लिए लागू होता है. क्या ये होता है या नहीं होता है? That is something you can question upon. Why I'm saying experiments are gold standards, because in experiment आप देख पाते हो, you're able to see what is happening in the real world. There can be two types of experiments also. One is field, the other one is laboratory. Okay, so here what we do in laboratory experiments, we try to manipulate our independent variable. Okay, and we have a control on that. When I say manipulating independent variable, I'll just take the same previous example, and I just talk about, say, motivation की बात की थी. Motivation क्या stress जो होता है उस पर कुछ impact कर पाता है. तो motivation levels employees के, in order to measure motivation level of the employees, you can bring in different manipulations. Okay, you can do different thing with different people, different employees every day to motivate them or demotivate them. Okay, there can be things that you can do in a laboratory setting, and then you see the impact of motivation on stress with change in the independent variable here. So here what we are talking about is that there can be many methodological approaches. Existing methodological approaches can be questioned, and if you're questioning that, and if you're yourself implementing some other kind of methodology to answer that same question, and maybe you get a different answer to it. So research question that you just sought, आपको उसका कुछ अलग ही unique insight मिले, then you call it, okay, this is a new kind of research. I have questioned the earlier methodologies. Now I'm talking about something which is entirely new. I'm sure you may not be understanding most of the things here what I'm talking about, because until and unless you get the grip of the whole things, you will not understand it. But at least if you are paying attention, you will get to know this much, that what are the things I can question. Okay, what are the things I can take my research, I can build my research on. So I can build my research on some definitions that are ambiguous, or I can try to see what are the inconsistencies in the prior results. Can I bring in more variables or more constructs into the model and see how it works out? Okay, or if somebody else, if prior researchers, previous researchers have done some errors in methodology, maybe I can try and change it in my own research. So these become your later on, if you see, that they become your research questions. Okay, now why we do review paper, you can also say that you can develop conceptual frameworks to reconcile and extend past research. So maybe I was talking here about, say, motivation leading to stress. Okay, say previous studies have done this. Now if I want to include other constructs into this picture, so why an employee will be motivated, you can take back step, you go backwards and understand that if you're getting a good supervisor, or you're getting a good good resources in the organization, or there is good leadership, or maybe there is a good environment, good workplace, then it may motivate the employees, and then subsequently the motivated employees are less stressed. Okay, so what I did here, I tried to say bring in new things, new ideas. I tried to reconcile the things which have been done earlier, and I tried to extend that in my own research. So what I'm trying to develop over here is a conceptual framework. And you will see, uh, I'll just show you some research articles also. If you look into most of the research articles, the first step, you will read, I think there is one session on writing research papers, maybe you will get to know about it then, but I'm just touching upon it, that there is an introduction section. Okay, the first section, this is very important. This is how you are selling your work, not only to your the audience who will see it as a published article, but you're also selling your article to the editor. Okay, the introduction section, this is the first section that helps you in making a mark that your research is a good research. How do you do that? In the introduction section, you talk about the problems that are associated with previous researches. Okay, and that you can only do with the help of a good literature review. Okay, you will look into definitions, you will look into inconsistencies, methodological inconsistencies, and you will put it across in terms of research gaps and then research questions. Okay, and all this should become or form part of your introduction and LR section. Okay, so after the introduction section, you have a literature review section in which you're only talking about what have been done before, what are the things that have been done before, how those things are inadequate, and how I can add things to that so that it becomes a better work. All right, so you can describe new insights, you can fill up existing gaps, you can talk about it in the literature part, and you will see there is one section for every published research. If you look into it, you will find that what are the limitations of this particular research and what is the future research agenda. So in that future research agenda, you will see that the authors have themselves identified that, okay, I have not done this, and this is the limitation of this my research. I have not done I have, say for example, I have done a cross sectional study. Now what is a cross sectional study? In which you take a survey of n number of people at a given point in time. Okay, so if I have to survey say 500 people today, or say in a month's time, it's a cross sectional study. Okay, but if I say go in and do the same kind of study a year later, and I also have time n1, that is today, I have the data for today, and I also have the data for say 1 year later, I have collected the same data for the same questionnaire, it becomes a more of a longitudinal study. Okay, where we see that whether the time factor also impacts the way people are perceiving things or doing things. So this is the purpose of a review paper. How do you search for reviews? I'll just show it to you. So you can go to Google Scholar. Just go to Google Scholar. I hope this is visible. Yeah, is this part visible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is Google Scholar. I've just gone into the Google Scholar. Okay, I've typed in Google Scholar. What you can do probably is this. These are the first things that you will do, right? ये सबसे स्टार्टिंग के चीजें जो आपको सीखनी चाहिए, आपको करना चाहिए. Because why I fall back on Google Scholar, because you will see most of the research, even those of them that have not been published, or say are preprints, or say for example are in the institutional repositories of institutions, or maybe say are in the the authors themselves have used the preprints and uploaded. All these things come in Google Scholar. They have specific crawlers that identify the researches. All right, so what you do is you can see the three lines here, parallel lines. You click on this and you go to advanced search. Okay, click on advanced search. You will get this dialog box. In this dialog box you can see, so generally what students do is that they just write it here, anything they can put in, any answer, any question, they can just put in here and they get it. So what you do here is you can do this as well. Say you want to do a research on say psychological empowerment. Okay, so you get a psychological empowerment and you search it. and you are, getting 15,70,000 responses. All right. So out of this, you will look into first few, and then you are done. Over. Okay. Some research have been done in 95, 92. You do not know whether I'm really learning or reading something that is current or contemporary. What you do is, okay, 2000, 2009, 97, what to do. Maybe all these are available here. PDFs are available, so you can go there and search for it. That's fine. This is one way of doing it, but it's a tedious way of doing it. So what you do is, you go to this advanced search here. Here, sorry, I get back. So here, this is the advanced search. Click on this advanced search, and you have to just find articles with all the words. Okay, so what you can do is, if you want exact terms to be produced, so you use this quotes, things in quotes. Say, so you have written psychological empowerment. Okay, and then quotes close. So here what will happen, only those articles that are having these two words together, you will get that, only those. All right. If you want to write with the exact phrase, you can also put in, you can write a phrase, and then you can just go about it. If you want only at least one of the words, so you can just keep on writing and say that, okay, if one of the words are there, then it is fine with me. If you want to remove any word, maybe you can put it here. All right. Now these things that you have written here, if you put it in anywhere in the article, you will get anywhere in the article, and you can just think about, okay, where my particular topic is. I'm not able to get it. But say, for example, you put it in the title of the article. Okay, so all the titles that have psychological empowerment will be provided to you by Google Scholar. All right. Now, if you have to search for authors that are, they have done significantly in that field. If you know about it, then you can write the name. The last name will also work. All right. If you know that it has been published in which journal, okay, I'm not sure if you're knowing about journals and indexing and ranking of journals, how it is done, how you consider that a journal is a good journal or a bad journal. Maybe some sessions on that could also be, I think, is there when you talk about publication. I think they'll talk about it, the resource person. So here, research article, if you know that where it has been published, you can just put in here, and that will be all. All right. And the third part is where you can see that return articles dated between. This is very important. I consider it very important. You know why? Because whenever you write a research article and it gets rejected when you put it in a journal, you'll see that a common comment of the editor is that this article that you have written is dated, or the articles that you have cited in the work are dated. Okay, it means that okay, how do you write it, how students write it, or how research scholars write it? They will cite a research article that has been written in, say, 1990. Okay, I was showing you some articles that Google Scholar reflected. They were researchers from the past 20-30 years. Okay, so they will cite a research from 1990 and say that significant researches in this area have not been done as previously cited. Okay, so here this becomes a joke on us. Okay, you're citing something which is 30 years old, and you're saying कि इस पे कोई काम ही नहीं हुआ, और ऐसा 1990 में ऑथर ने लिखा है. Okay, I hope you're getting my point. So what you have to do is see the current state of knowledge in that discipline, and for that you have this section. So you can just write some years, say maybe 2015 to 2021, and then you click on this, the search button, and then you will see every article that has been published recently from the time frame that you have provided. It will give you. So now, out of 15 lakh, this research has been reduced to 1830 only. Okay, now at least you know that these are my 1000 articles that I have to focus on and I have to study. And there are different ways also in which you can further cut short. So you can refine your keyword. Okay, the psychological empowerment in the title you have used. So all the articles that have psychological empowerment in the title, in the heading, you are getting it here. Okay, but you may further want to, put it across and see what other things can be left out. So these are some of the articles, and you can just read the abstract and see which are good for you, and then you can consider it for your uh, learning outcome. All right, so this is about, how you search things, and this is one such example. The other one, maybe you can go to the Scopus database. Okay, so you can go to Scopus database here. Here you can see, you can search, this is Scopus. You need to have your account here, Scopus account. Okay, if you have an institutional email ID, that would be great. If something that is provided by University of Delhi, then you are able to even, access the whole documentation here. So now what you do, you search. There are other things you search. This is the one thing that you do, search. So I was talking about, and most of the bibliometric researches that have been done, say bibliometric researches that Sir was also talking about, Professor Anand Prakash was talking about, these are the things that you will see. And it's a kind of, understanding what is the current knowledge in that particular domain. So you go for a bibliometric study. So for that, say Scopus or a Web of Science database is good. So how do you do it? You just go to the search documents, click here, again use that same quote mark here and write psychological empowerment. Okay, this is, and then quotes close. All right, say for example, if you want to also have other types of empowerment, so you just write or, then again start with this quote and write empowerment, and that's it. And this is what you have closed it, and then you search. Okay, and it has given me 54,772 documents. All right, Scopus. So only those journals that are listed in Scopus, all right, are 54,000 of them do talk about psychological empowerment. Now you can see researches from latest to the oldest, it has been provided. You have a choice here also. Say for example, so this is limit to and exclude, so you can use them whenever you feel like. So what I generally do is, if I want to only read, and you can see author's name are also given. So Tong A has written 65 of such articles that are related to psychological empowerment. This is also one way of knowing that this person is a kind of authority in the area of psychological empowerment, because he's written 65 articles. So maybe all of them may be relevant to you, maybe all of them are not relevant to you. So you can look into it. So do you want to limit through authors or not? I don't suggest limiting through the authors. What you can do is you can limit it to the subject area. Say for example, now you want only psychology discipline papers, or the journals which have been published in the psychology journals. So you just click on psychology. That's it. Okay, now you have limited from 50,000 odd journal articles to 4,796. All right, if you want to do further classification, you say I just want articles and I just want review. I don't want a conference paper, I don't want a book chapter, I don't want book. So I'll just click on this. Further, you can look into source title, um, and keywords if you want. If you want to do it through affiliation or funding or country specific, say I want only US related papers, or if you want India related paper, you can get that also. Mostly here you can, source type is journal, you can click on here, and I am only interested in English language. Okay, so I'll just use this limit to not all those things that I've clicked on. It will be only that much which I want, so I limit it. Okay, so when I do this limitation, I get 3,995 documents. So out of 50,000, and what I have tried to do is I've tried to get only 4,000 of them. Okay, now my work is becoming easier. So what I can do is I can go to all, okay, and I would want to export this as a CSV or an Excel file. And in this file you will get different aspects. Say for example, you will get what is the title, who are the authors, which are the different journals in which the things have been published. You will also get abstract and other details also when you download the CSV file. And this file is generally used in, say, bibliometric analysis. Okay, bibliometric analysis uh, gives you the details about authors, it gives you details about themes, it can give you detail about collaboration between authors, if they belong to different countries, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of things that we explore in bibliometric analysis. So if you want to become an expert of a particular discipline, it's important that you read the articles which are related to that field, and Scopus being one of such sources where you can get in all the details. So it's important that you read it thoroughly before. So these techniques, if you download it, you can uh, get the sources and get many other things. You can just see the abstract and decide, okay, I want to read it further or not. Okay, so what is the basic difference between, say, a systematic literature review and a bibliometric literature review? Bibliometric analysis, I will call it, is that in systematic literature review, you can think about, there has to be a criteria, an exclusion or inclusion criteria. You will say, okay, I'm only taking publications from 2015 to 2021 or 2022 onwards. This is one exclusion criteria. So anything which has been published before 2015 will be lost. Okay, you include only recent papers. Also, you can think about, in this search domain only, you use some of the research keywords and you remove others. So maybe that becomes an inclusion criteria. So in systematic literature review, what you do is you take around 70 to 80, most at the most you can go for 100 research articles that you will review on, and it will be a comprehensive review of those 100 research articles. But when we talk about bibliometric research, it can be, say, it ranges into thousands also. Okay, and in that you can not, you cannot give all the aspects, but you can learn some of the aspects like themes and co-citation networking and multi-dimensional scaling. And these are the words which I'm throwing upon you. Maybe you can write it down and read further so that you will understand why we need to go for bibliometric analysis or, say, a systematic literature review. So it is important to understand systematic literature review, limited number of papers, only those papers that are related to my research question I'll take. And in bibliometric analysis, all the research that has been done in that particular research area and domain can be taken up and studied. All right, this is mostly the difference between them, but there are a lot of other differences also. Maybe you can read more about it and the differences and why. And I definitely propose that every one of you, those who want to do good research in any area or discipline, you should go for a systematic literature review and bibliometric review, so that not for publication purpose, but at least what is the current state of knowledge in that particular discipline. All right. So if I go back to my presentation here, you can see we are talking about this. Now this SLR process, I'll be a little quick. I think we are exceeding time here. In this, what you do in this SLR process, yeah, the first thing is the topic formulation. We have talked about it. That means you set out some clear objectives for the review and articulate some research questions. In the second stage, when you're designing the study, what you do is you specify some relevant problems which are there, talk about population, talk about constructs, talk about interest setting. Okay, you can have selection criteria, as I was talking about, explicit criteria, and you need to very clearly say, okay, this is my criteria of inclusion or exclusion of articles. Okay, then you do the sampling. Okay, in this sampling, what you do is define what is your sampling unit. Okay, maybe individually you want to do this research. I mean, individual is your respondent or concern that we are talking about. So there are studies that are based on an individual, and there are studies that are based on organization. There can be studies that are based on country, region specific, and others. So you will have to specify that in this stage. Okay. And then you go for data collection. Data collection is what I just showed you right now in Scopus and in Google Scholar. So you can go for data extraction. After that, in the data collection, you do the extraction. That means you see all the eligible requirements for the study are done or not. And then you go for a data analysis. Now, when you do go for a data analysis, if you're doing a systematic literature review, what you have to do is use descriptive analysis. Okay. Start by saying what is the degree and nature of the constructs that we're looking at, what are the multivariate relationship among constructs that we want to find out. And if you want to know further about the given topic, you can go for a bibliometric research, bibliometric analysis, in which you can do some multi-dimensional scaling or cluster analysis in order to identify the emerging themes in that particular area. So if we just talk about psychological empowerment, in that you will see there are some themes that are emerging. That means people are working on that, and others are not, and other themes are declining. So that can be there. And then the last part of it is reporting. Okay, that means you have to, now this is very important step. You have read through so many articles and you have tried to identify some themes, some major clusters of ideas, some major relationships among constructs, and now you want to present it. And the presentation should be clear, it should be compelling. You use tables, you can use figures to showcase your narrative. Okay. More of that, what you can do, you want to do what through this reporting, you want to bring out some insights. Okay. You have to, and it is important, even a systematic literature review, if I say this term is, it starts with a research question. Okay. And it ends with providing unique insight for future research and managerial practice. So you cannot just go around creating some kind of a index and not providing future insight. So you look into, so if I have to put it in layman's term, I'll put it like this. आपने बहुत सारे रिसर्च आर्टिकल्स पढ़े उस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में, आपने जो स्पेसिफिक रिलेशनशिप है जो अलग अलग स्टडीज में आपको देखने को मिले, कॉमन स्टडीज जो आपको देखने को मिले, आपने उसको उठाया, आपने उसके बारे में एनालिसिस किया, आपने उसको अपने तरह से इंटरप्रेट किया, इंसाइट्स डेवलप किए कि और क्या चीजें हो सकती है ना. ये पार्ट जो है सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, दैट व्हाट आर द इंसाइट्स दैट यू कुड रिफ्लेक्ट ऑन आफ्टर गिविंग अ डीप स्टडी ऑफ दिस टॉपिक. एक टॉपिक को आपने इतनी डीपली स्टडी किया तो आप कुछ क्या इसमें इंसाइट दे सकते हो या नहीं, ये क्वेश्चन है. और जब व्हेन यू गो फॉर फर्दर एम्पेरिकल एनालिसिस, यानी आप डेटा कलेक्शन करते हो और मेथोडोलॉजीज यूज करते हो, तो आप अपने उन्हीं सवालों को आंसर करने की कोशिश करते हो, जो इनसाइट्स आपको मिले, जिस पे आप रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हो. These are the things you actually do at a later stage. So this becomes very, very important. All right. So this was mostly about yeah, and this is the last thing which I wanted to talk to you about, systematic literature review, that you should have depth and rigor. Do not cherry pick articles. जैसे आपको पसंद आ गया कोई article out of all और आपने उसको पढ़ लिया and that's it, and you are saying that I've seen lot of research articles and nobody has done such kind of work, I'm the only one who is doing it. So this is a kind of anomaly that will be caught very easily by any editor, whenever he or she deems doing that. So do not cherry pick articles. जो आपको पसंद आ गया वो उठा लिया, ऐसे मत करो. You cannot have a preset notion. Start your research journey with neutral stance. Okay. And obviously you will build some kind of a notion later on by reading, and that is what we call reflection. But right from the very beginning, if you showcase that okay, this is the preset notion, या कुछ ही articles मेरे को उठाने और उसी में से मेरे को सब कुछ बता देना, then there is a problem. Okay. Also, as I have been talking about, do not make your article an index. Okay, never do that. Try to give insights. Index का मतलब कि बता दिया, रिपोर्ट कर दिया कि XYZ ने ये काम किया है और बाकी लोगों ने ये काम किया है, and you just summarized it and that's all, and you don't have any insight to give. If that is it, you are not doing a literature review or systematic literature review. In that case, you are just creating an index. Okay, so that has to be avoided. All right. So related to this, I think I can just continue with it. So related to the concept of uh, literature review, and I have touched upon most of the things in literature review itself. Like, what are the research questions? Now, what can be your possible research questions? So research questions, what are research questions? They ultimately turn into your final research. Okay, the research questions, they turn into your final research. So how do you find it? How do you find that, okay, this is a, a research question, or this is a research gap? How you do that? All right, so you can either do it by spotting gap in the literature that I have been talking about. That means you have taken out the literature and you have tried to understand that, okay, there is a gap. So what are the different types of gaps? Let us understand some gaps here first. As in, what can be the you can say the inadequacies in previous researches. So I'll try to explain it, through maybe some examples. Okay. So I hope you must have heard about rational decision making. Okay, this is rational decision making is a concept. Rational decision making, that means earlier humans were considered to be rational being and logical beings, that whatever decisions they will take or will make are mostly rational. Okay, this is something that was believed, and that was part of a theory. Okay, theory is something that is giving you a connection or interlinkage between different constructs, bounding it by different assumptions. So earlier assumption was that human beings are rational decision makers. Okay, this is a theory that it says that human beings are rational decision makers. Now, when Simon, did this work on bounded rationality, he actually uh, did a seminal work. He did not just spotted a gap in the literature. He questioned the assumption. Okay, he said, it is not like that all human beings are rational decision makers. Okay, there are, and it has been proved, and there have been instances when we see that people make decisions on the basis of bounded rationality. Now, I'll just explain to you. When he said bounded rationality, he meant that there can be a lot of constraints when you're making a decision. Okay, there can be human constraints, there can be constraints that we have control upon, and there can be some, uncontrollables. So he actually questioned this assumption. So when you start challenging previous assumptions, then that is the start of an interesting work, and that is very different from spotting gap in the literature. So the most of the studies that you will see in good journals, even the best of the journals, they believe, and it has been studied also. I can give you some research articles. If you read them, you will understand that, okay, some researchers have been done on it. So even best of the journals publish those articles that showcase that there's a gap in the literature. Okay, and let us fill this gap in the existing literature. Okay, that means what? You are in a way positively or mildly criticizing earlier studies. You're saying my research is, I have now understood that what is the current state of knowledge in this particular area, and now I just want to extend it further, and I accept all the assumptions under which this theory has been postulated. So जो भी पहले बताया गया वो सब सही है, assumptions भी सही हैं, but कुछ चीजें ऐसी हैं जिसके ऊपर काम नहीं हुआ है, कुछ थीम्स ऐसे हैं जिन पे अटेंशन नहीं दिया गया है, या कुछ ऐसे काम है जिसपे एम्पेरिकली डेटा कलेक्शन नहीं हुआ है और उस तरह का रिसर्च नहीं हुआ है, इसीलिए अब मैं इस चीज पे रिसर्च कर रहा हूँ या कर रही हूँ। ओके, सो दिस इज कॉल्ड गैप स्पॉटिंग। यहाँ पे आपने गैप स्पॉट किया, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि ये गलत है। टू स्टार्ट विथ, एवरीवन शुड गो फॉर दिस टेक्निक, क्योंकि आप एक दिन में बहुत ही अच्छे रिसर्चर नहीं हो जाएंगे, जैसे कि प्रोफेसर आनंद प्रकाश वाज आल्सो सेइंग। आप शुरुआत करते हैं छोटी चीजों से, यू नो वी, एंड यू विल सी, एंड आई एम सेइंग दिस, spotting gap and doing that study after, you know, building your research questions on those gaps are still considered to be the best bet. Okay, क्योंकि you will see that even the editors or the reviewers, if you straightforward, you know, if you just say that the assumptions that have been accepted for past so many years, if you are saying that ये assumption सही नहीं है, ये गलत है, then you will be questioned more. Okay, and हो सकता है कि आपका पेपर रिजेक्ट हो जाए. Okay, this can also happen. So when you're challenging previous assumption, it goes for great research. Okay, you'll have to back it up with lot of evidences and lot of robust research. So I suggest you can start with gap spotting. Okay, and you can talk about some themes that have not been done, or some empirical research has not been done, and let us look into all those challenges and see things happening. All right, so and I would call this, you know, a prevalent research method. This is prevalent nowadays, and you will see this happening mostly. So these are the two ways in which you can create questions. So how do you gap spotting, how this is done? So you generate research questions by identifying and constructing specific gaps in existing literature. Okay, जैसे अभी आपको मैं बता रहा था मोटिवेशन एंड स्ट्रेस के बारे में, सो मे बी सम ऑफ द थिंग्स हैव नॉट बीन टेकन, कोई मीडिएशन रिलेशनशिप नहीं ली गई है, तो उसको ले लेना है, उसको आइडेंटिफाई कर लेना है, एंड देन you take it and you study it and you showcase ki okay, now I have studied a mediator in this study, या moderated mediation approach है जो मैं नया लेके आ रहा हूँ, and I'm bringing this new thing, and therefore you generate a research question on this particular gap. Okay, or you try to look into overlooked areas, to search for some shortages of theory, and you try to fill in that theory through your own work. Okay, so you can use the gap method to, you know, build upon your own research questions. And आज से अगर आप अपने best या फिर the most interesting research domain that you are interested in, if you want to look into some of the articles through that Google Scholar method, try downloading some articles and just try and read the introduction and the conceptual framework section or the LR section, and you will find that everyone, almost everyone says this is the literature. If you are lucky enough, you will be able to understand that in the initial few paragraphs only you will get to know that what this particular researcher is trying to do. Okay, they will say that though a lot of studies have been done on learning, but this particular aspect has not been catered to, and what I want to do in this my research is to fill this gap. So you will see mostly in all these research articles that specific gaps have been identified, and this is what we say is research gaps, or you can say, you can also use the word research problems that we identify in the introduction section, and with the help of the literature we formulate the research questions. All right, now yeah, I've talked about theory. Let us talk about problematization. Now problematization is a very unique concept. ये बहुत नया है, बहुत कम लोग इस पे काम करते हैं, और इसीलिए, you know, mostly you will see that such kind of researches which are breakthrough researches, they have lot to contribute, yeah, they propose a new theory, is very very less. बहुत कम है ऐसे पेपर्स जो पिछले रिसर्चेस को रिफ्यूट करते हैं इंटायरली, या उसके assumptions को रिफ्यूट करते हैं, and they say, and they critically say that okay, these were the things that were applicable say before, now they are not applicable. So this can be temporal, or you can say that okay, पहले के स्टडीज में ये सारी चीजें गलत लिखी हुई थी और हमने इसको एक्स्ट्रा एक्सप्लोर किया. I'll just give you an example. जैसे कि अभी मैं आई वाज जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट रैशनल डिसीजन मेकिंग, वैसे इफ आई से irrational behavior, individuals के irrational, that means you have biases, you have psychological biases. जैसे आप you are overconfident about certain things, that can be a bias, or they can be perceptual distortions like stereotypes. Okay, or they can be something called self-fulfilling prophecy. ये आई थिंक साइकोलॉजी वाले सारे जानते होंगे. तो दिस सेल्फ फुलफिलिंग प्रोफेसी इससे कि अगर मैंने कुछ सही किया है, if the work goes on well for me, that means I'm talking about, जैसे आपके टीचर ने आपको कोई काम दिया, ये ग्रुप वर्क है, so you have done that work nicely. Okay, so you say that okay, this work which has been done nicely is because of me. Okay, I have done this and therefore it's the best work. And अगर इसी का just opposite हो जाए, it's a different way of putting it, that okay, something went haywire, something went bad with the work you were doing in the group, you just say that okay, it was because of some external reasons, so it was because of someone else but not me. So this is self fulfilling prophecy. Okay, कि जो भी चीजें अच्छी होती है वो मेरे वजह से, जो भी खराब होता है वो किसी और की वजह से. So these are some of the irrational behavior. ठीक है, earlier it was not considered to be systematic. People used to believe that it is not systematic. It does not happen to people. This can be aberration, this can be one in a million kind of a situation. So when Richard Thaler worked on this, and he said that irrational behavior of an individual is systematic and it is a part of your personality, then he classified it and modeled it. He got a Nobel Prize for this. Okay, so Richard Thaler का जब आप पढ़ेंगे, you will understand it. So this was about problematization. That means you're challenging assumptions, you're thinking differently, you're going beyond what is already known. Okay, and this kind of research is very rare, and at least as young researchers you should know कि ऐसा भी कुछ exist होता है other than gap spotting, other than knowing कि हाँ ये particular चीजें हो रखी है और ये चीजें नहीं हो रखी, तो ये गैप है, इसको हम अपने फिल करेंगे अपने स्टडी से. तो हो सकता है मेथोडोलॉजी में गैप हो सकता है, लिटरेचर में गैप हो सकता है, हमारे आइडिएशन में गैप हो, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. बट what you should really focus on is problematization, and that you can only do when you know a particular discipline or particular subject inside out by reading all the intellectual contributions of different authors in the past decade. So and past decade I would call it 10 years or 20 years down the line also. If you want to read, you can go ahead and read it to know what is the current state of the knowledge in that, and go for some kind of breaking the shackles and saying that okay, this kind of a research should be done more, problematization should be done more. Okay, and it is not it is not like that कि आपका ये जो problematization है और जो आपने research किया है ये publish हो जाएगा बहुत अच्छे journal में, क्योंकि there are a lot of different types of other things that happen with the journals. They will say okay, हमारे journal में एक ऐसा article छपा था जिसको this person is refuting, this person saying कि that assumption is not right, and I am giving you a different assumption, a varied thought process, इसको reject कर देते हैं. So that can also happen. Okay, and it has been researched, and I can share with you some papers on which you can read it and come across, and you'll see okay, ऐसा भी होता है. So you don't have to be bored on by that. Not always you will get good publications, but it's important that you work well. All right, and when you do a good problematization and you're following it up with a robust study design, then the problem also is resolved. Such kind of problem that some of the journals are rejecting your article will also be resolved. So how to write a research question stems from a problem, and that problem is either a research gap or a problem in the assumption. So you have to think about it and then formulate your research questions. So that's it. I think I am done with it. Okay, I'll stop sharing, and if I have questions I can take it now.
Thank you so much, sir, for the informative and insightful session on such an important topic, which is relevant for all of us present here. And we are very grateful to you for giving your valuable time and sharing experience and wisdom with us. And yes, we do have some queries in the chat section. All right. Okay, so the people who have raised their hands, can you please write down your queries? That would be great. Okay, so sir, one person has written, why can't research on a topic which has topical relevance? Why can't we research on a topic which has topical relevance?
Who is stopping you from doing that? Please do it. In research, you have to justify your propositions. You'll have to say that this is what I'm doing and back it up with rigorous literature and rigorous methodological details. Nobody is stopping you. We always have to be innovative. जैसे बात की जाती है ना कि इनोवेशन में कि आप इंक्रीमेंटल इनोवेशन देते हैं, छोटी छोटी इनोवेशन दे के काम हो जाता है, वहां रुक जाते हैं, या फिर यू गो फॉर रेडिकल काइंड ऑफ इनोवेशन वेयर एन एवरीथिंग चेंजेस. So either you believe in certain things that are incremental and go about building up your research career that way, or you can go in for path breaking or radical work where you question the very assumptions. I'm not saying कि हमेशा ये assumptions गलत ही होंगे, but what I'm saying is that there are endless opportunities and endless possibilities which can be explored, and nobody is stopping you to do anything which is of topical importance. You can definitely go about doing it.
All right, thank you, sir. So second query is, can funding affect the quality of research?
Well, I'll be very blunt here. Somebody is giving you the funding, right? So they want the research, to be done in that way, particular way. But there are also neutral fund givers. If they look into your research proposal and say, okay, fine, this is a good research proposal and it has to be done in the way. Generally, researches in academics go in that way that you don't have outside interventions much, and this is how you go for. But if there is some kind of a conflict of interest, or if you are praising a given institution and continuously doing that, maybe then the funders will have problem. Otherwise, I don't think a big problem there here, because I think most of the researchers they look for is impartial and they'll not stick in between. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. So another query is, what is the difference between bibliography and references?
Okay. Bibliography is when you are, say, looking into multiple sources, but you do not make a in-text citation of it. Okay, don't provide the citation of that in your text, but you still give a description of that in the bibliography. Okay, that means you have read a book, but you have not mentioned about it, as in some part of it that you have written in your text. You have not mentioned that, okay, I've taken it from this book. So this is about bibliography. That means something which you find at the end of the bibliography may not be found in text. But when we call references, it has to be seen that way, that anything which is in text should be in the reference. Anything which is in the references will also be there in text. So this is the common difference here, bibliography and references. Yeah, but you have different ways, like you have work cited also that is used. You use bibliography also. So it depends on different style. What I'm talking about is APA, American Psychological Association style. So you can stick to one citation and referencing style, and I think that is enough. There is Emerald style also, Harvard style also. Depending on which journal you're writing, they'll ask you to change the styling, and for that you have this session, I guess, on reference management. So there you will learn more about it. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, so another query is that, as we saw in Google Scholar, even after advanced research, there were around 1800 researches. In such cases, how to ensure that there is novelty in our research question?
That is a painstaking task, obviously. As I was talking about, you have reduced it from lakhs to thousands. Now your work is further cut out. You have to look into the abstracts of each of them. Then you have to make a list of notes you have to create for yourself, and then you will yourself be able to. Now when you read so many articles, you are the best judge which one is suitable for my work, and wherein I can, think about, okay, this can be a new research question in this particular area. So you are the best judge about it, because you become an expert while you're reading so many research. So it's not a shortcut always. All right, you'll have to go through most of the things, and then only you will be able to say that, okay, now this is something which is new, and this is a kind of a research gap which I'll take forward, and I'll work from that onwards. Okay, so
That's very true, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, so moving on to another query. What are the steps a master's student can take to do experiments in India? So this is the first query. The second one is related to is, are there any radical experiments in human behavior that have happened in India, like the Stanford prison experiment? Okay, this is actually related to psychology. If not, what do you think the reasons?
I maybe आप लोग बता पाए इसका आंसर कि कौन से रेडिकल साइकोलॉजिकल रिसर्चेस हुए हैं, क्योंकि ये मेरा प्रॉपर डोमेन नहीं है. हाउएवर व्हाट इन इंडिया इफ आई हैव टू टॉक अबाउट, नहीं हुए रीजन क्या है? अगेन वही रीजन है कि वी डू नॉट एनकरेज थिंग्स विच स्टेटस को क्वेश्चन करते हैं. Okay, we don't do that kind of research which are, say, shackling the assumptions. So maybe that should be promoted more. And I will not say that such things are not happening, and in world over agar aap researchers dekhenge, you will find that most of the researchers go for gap spotting only. So yeah, so these experiments that have been done before in psychology, if you look into from the very beginning, all these experiments are a kind of basis for the theory that has been developed over the years. So going for experiments are, I think this is the best way, this is the gold standard that we all should follow. Now the second thing, if you're a master student, how you can take it up from here. So it should be there has to be an institution where you're affiliated to. There has to be an ethics board. You have to take your research to the board, you have to get the compliances cleared, and then you can go on doing the research on, say, for example, if you're doing an experiment, because when you do experiment, there are a lot of ethical concerns also that will come up. For example, you have to make them anonymity, confidentiality, and other things will come in. Research subjects need to be, they should know about your research. If you have to tell them later, you have to debrief them. So how do you start? You have to take permissions. You have to have a supervisor, of course. You have to you can work in their supervision, so that things, like, we generally do some mistakes, I think that can be taken care of. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. And now this is going to be the last query for today. As you mentioned in your earlier conversation that before 90s, most of the work used to be published after many experiments. But after 90s, more rely on survey. Is there any impact after changing the approach from experiment to survey? And second query is related to this. What is the credibility of the survey if we more rely on this?
Okay, I would just ask you, maybe I'll also share this reference with you. Go and read the editorials of the Leadership Quarterly. All right, and you will see the impact of experiments. Now, this particular journal that I'm talking about, they are not even considering any cross-sectional research. So if you're doing a survey-based research, they will just reject it. And most of the best journals are doing this right now, because now they consider, if it's a survey, it has a tendency to be biased, and there are a lot of, but also if you make it robust, in the sense that if you go for longitudinal studies, or if you take care of the common method biases that can creep in, and otherwise you will get it through in most of the good journals as well. Because what you are talking about, you do not claim for causality. Okay, you don't say X will lead to Y, it will impact, or X is the reason why Y will occur. You will say, okay, there is an association which needs to be further substantiated with experimental study. It can be a lab study, or it can be a field study, but you do it to begin with. The study, you start that with. All right, so the impact is impact is there. We can see that most of the survey researches are now not taken very seriously. There is a huge influx of survey researches, but if the researcher is keen to understand that what is the difference between association and causality, and they are able to make that distinction very apparent in their work, and if they are able to somehow justify that this kind of association is new and novel, and if it can be studied later on through various rigorous method, if it brings out some kind of important gateway for seminal research, then I think this can go forward. So we are not refuting entirely, but you will see, you please read that editorial. um, mm, I think, and there are some research articles by Podskov also. They talk about experimental studies and why experimental studies should be. There is something called endogeneity, problem of endogeneity. If you can read about that also, these things are very common nowadays. And if you're aspiring to write research articles for very good journals, then you'll have to mitigate through these problems.